You're tuned into the Zealous Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This week, Devan McConnell comes back onto Zealous with me. If you have listened to him in the past, you know he was the high performance director for the Arizona Coyotes NHL team. Well, there's been a change of ownership and a change of location. Now it's the Utah Hockey Club. So we're going to talk about what it's like to move from one state to the other and maintain a great team of professionals that he oversees as the high performance director. But before we get underway, remember we've got continuing education, courses, workshops, in person and online. Just go to rockysnyder.com. Whether you're an athletic trainer, a physical therapist, heck, chiropractor, strength coach, personal trainer, we've got CEUs for you all. So check out the next time I'll be in your area or just join a course online. And don't forget, Setanta College is the place to go. If you go to setantacollege.com, enter the code RS10, get 10% off your tuition for a Master's of Science degree. And they've got 4 tracks that you can choose from coaching to sports, injury, psychology, and more. Just go to setantacollege.com. And don't forget, subscribe. Tell a couple people. I would love to get feedback on how these podcasts are doing. Last week was our 200th episode, and here's to the next 200. All right, back to the action. Enjoy the show.
Would love to just get maybe some insight as to where you get your resources for team development and for like management, because it's outside the scopes of like strength conditioning, obviously, and performance. But I know there's a whole bunch of resources out there, and I'm kind of curious as to where you go to improve upon the skills that you are already sharpening. So how does that sound?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think it's a great question. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's one of those things, and people talk about it all the time. And um, leadership and management, it's sort of the common sort of problem. The salesman, gets really good at being a salesman and moves up the ranks, and then all of a sudden becomes the manager of the salesman. And it's like at no point in time was that person ever, did they ever learn how to be a manager, or did they have that skill set? They were just good at being a salesman. And it's kind of the same thing in our world, from the standpoint of, you work up the ranks, as a strength coach, or whatever niche in the performance field, a physical therapist or an athletic trainer, and you kind of work yourself up the ranks, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in sort of a leadership or a management position. And it's like, at no point in time did my academic background, or even my sort of in the trenches background educate me on the nuts and bolts of leadership and management. I mean, I think you learn leadership in this field kind of as you go, I think, being a coach. But so for me, you try to look outside the field and try to learn. And so there's been a couple ways that I've I guess purposefully tried to upskill myself in those areas. I mean, one is you know I guess searching out mentors and talking to people that have been in these types of roles, and whether it be whatever, my title is high performance director, but whatever that type of general managers, or whatever the leadership title is. Somebody for me that's been really influential, and has become a friend, not just a mentor, but a friend, is Fergus Connolly. He's a guy that has worn a lot of different hats, in a lot of different spaces in the performance field. But he's somebody that, actually, probably, man, it might be close to 10 years ago now. I actually did was part of I guess I would call it like a mastermind group. He had probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 of us that he kind of created like a little course, and we would just meet once a week or once every other week. And it was very, at the time, it was sort of informal. It was almost, we would kind of shoot some questions to him for the next week, and then he would sort of put some things together. And it was just, he had sort of been in that seat, and we were all, at the time, we were all younger strength coaches, and we were just curious about his path and where he had kind of gone and how he had gotten to this type of role. And so we would just sort of ask him questions, and that was, again, that was 8 or 10 years ago. And just staying in touch with him over the course of time. And then Other resources that are maybe a little bit more formal. Harvard Business Review has been a really good resource for me personally, just from a literature standpoint, at more of an academic standpoint. And then I like to do, in this job, you travel a lot, and there's a lot of, you work long hours, but there's also a lot of kind of dead time, downtime, where you're just sort of at the rink and there's not a lot going on. So there's a lot of opportunity to read or take online courses. So I do a lot of like online coursework. You can do a lot of sort of free coursework through like Coursera. So you can find courses that are offered, not for credit or anything, but are offered from different universities all over the world. And so I tend to take a lot of those and just try to, again, kind of upskill myself, listen to people that have been in, not necessarily in sports, sometimes in sports, but a lot of times, in business, a lot of times in different fields, and just try to learn from them and listen to their pathway.
Right on. That's great. So you mentioned your title, high performance director. And I think within our industry, there's all these different phrases and titles because we're all within it. We're trying to define what it is we do, right? It used to be the head strength conditioning coach, but then more roles began to be put on these individual shoulders, so it didn't really encompass everything they do. So I guess my question is this, Devan, is that high performance director, is that something the NHL is going to have as the term that describes the position you're in, or was that within Arizona or Utah that you developed that title? Like, where does that title come from, and is it homogenous across the teams of the NHL?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's definitely not homogenous. It is a little bit of the Wild West still, as far as what the specific titles are and even what the sort of roles and responsibilities are. You're seeing more and more teams in the NHL and really across professional sports in North America move towards this, I would call it, more common model. Again, there's differences across teams and across roles, but move towards these models where you have somebody in this seat that, or in this role that, I guess broadly, typically the role leads a group of interdisciplinary practitioners, sometimes just on the performance side, sometimes on the performance and medical side, depending on sort of the structure of the organization. Oftentimes the role specifically sort of manages the sports science piece of the organization.
Okay.
For us, that's how we're structured. So I lead the performance team. So our strength and conditioning coaches, that encompasses our nutrition, our dietitian, and sort of culinary staff. And then my sort of technical day-to-day role and responsibility, aside from assisting with the performance coaching and on the floor strength and conditioning, is really the sports science technology piece, integrating that within our strength and conditioning, within our sort of more holistic monitoring, I guess I would say, monitoring program with our athletes, and then really sort of, I guess, being the sort of principal liaison for communication to different departments. So whatever information from our sort of performance department per se, whether it's from a strength and conditioning perspective, whether it's from a sports science perspective, and those are all sort of, they're not necessarily different silos, they're one and the same, but wherever that information is coming from, whether that needs to go to management, whether that needs to go to the coaching staff, whether that needs to go, to whatever kind of stakeholders within the organization, a lot of my task is, reports and reporting and communication. Those are sort of some of the day-to-day responsibilities specifically with my role.
You mentioned when we began that the great American way is you find a person that's technically excelling at their skills, and then you move them up the ranks in hopes that they would teach and manage other people and in essence replicate themselves to an army of people underneath them, but often is the time that we don't get the support in terms of managerial support needed. So there's the weakness in that. For you to excel and to be successful by pulling you off of the weight room, shall we say, off the ice on a regular basis and put you in the confines of a four-walled environment that you're sitting in right now with a whiteboard on the wall, like how do you manage that? Like what are your tools? For me, I've got a giant whiteboard that goes from the floor to the ceiling, and it's my brain dump. Anything that comes out, I got to put it there. But then I work with spreadsheets and Google Calendar. Like, what are the tools that you're using to ensure that you are the high performance director?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not any different. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just about using those same tools, um, and then making sure. I think it really is about communication. Like at the end of the day, it's the only difference I see between, you know, earlier in my career when I was, a strength and conditioning coach at the collegiate level, and I was, an army of one, right? And I was the strength coach, the sports scientist, nutritionist, the psychologist, you do it all at that level. The difference between that and this level is that there you're making the decisions in each of those areas because you wear all of those hats. At this
Sure.
level, at this level, you have really highly skilled people around you that can make those decisions about each one of those niche areas. The challenge is creating an overarching vision and system that gets everybody on the same page, because everybody has a little bit different perspective and a little bit different um, lens that they're looking through. And so their area of expertise, they are better in their specific area than I ever was in all of those areas, right? But the challenge when you have lots of people in the room versus just yourself, when it's just you, whatever decision is in whatever thought you have in your head is the right idea, and you're going to make that decision and you're going to go down that path, and you're going to figure out if that's right or wrong, and but you make that decision and you go that way. When you've got a big staff and they all have slightly different ideas, they may all have right ideas, but it's that idea of you can't ride two horses at the same time. You can't ride 10 horses at the same time. So it's making sure that everybody is riding the same horse at the same time. And that's the most challenging thing, I think, is making sure that, and that's really what the purpose of the role is, because staffs in professional sports are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're bringing on more and more experts in specific areas. But that's what the challenge becomes, is when you have many people with slightly different lenses or slightly different um, perspectives, getting everybody sort of rowing in the same direction. Even not that people are purposefully trying not to, but again, it's just slightly different lenses or perspectives. So that's why I think more teams are creating these roles, is to make sure that, or to help get everybody sort of aligned in the same direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. It involves, to some degree, a leap of faith and trust, obviously, that you have the right staff members. But can you give me an idea? Well, first of all, I imagine that's probably one of your biggest challenges. And if not, what is your biggest challenge if that's not it?
No, I think it is. I think that is the biggest challenge for sure. Um, I think, and again, I think um, that comes down to communication. I think that comes down to trust. I think that comes down to um, it comes down to, like I said before, I think it's, at least the way that I see it, or the way that I try to do, is creating systems that sort of you know, um, set up, bumpers that say, okay, we're going to work within these constraints or within these sort of guidelines. And then, hey, wherever inside this, you as the practitioner um, see best to work, because you're an expert in your domain, and that's why you're in the NHL. That's why you're working at this level. Work in that area. You have the flexibility to do that, but there needs to be some guidelines around, broadly how we're going to do things. Because again, there's a lot of different roads to Rome, but we have to sort of decide as a group, okay, this is the road that we're going to take. So we need to create some systems and some structure around how we're going to do that.
Are there some, excuse me, are there some basic fundamentals, some tenets that you try to maintain across the spectrum of your professional team? And what I mean by that is, like, what is the bedrock for you? Is it the art of war? Is it what I'm trying to say is, like, what are the fundamental philosophies that, or core values? How about that? What are the core
Yep.
values that you are always attempting to maintain within your scope?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, great question. And that's you talked about what are some of the tools that I use, and it's silly to kind of think of it this way, but one of the tools that I use um, to create um, a shared vision is honestly is PowerPoint, right? Having clear visuals to communicate with our group when we have, start of the year meetings. I think it's really important to create a shared vision. So like we come together and we talk about, and we talk about it very informally all the time, but that creates sort of our framework throughout the year. And then part of what I try to do every, honestly, every off season, rehash the year, rethink about what was good, what was bad, what do we need to change. There's, it's an ever moving dynamic. Recreate sort of what is our vision going to be? What is um, our direction going to be for the next year? And put those things on paper. And then we have a meeting at the start of every year to define those things, so that again, we're crystal clear about where we're trying to go. For us, our values, and I kind of pulled it up on my other screen, so that's what I'm looking at, but our values are, what we believe in: trust, compassion, purpose, drive, innovation, and detail. And we have that. We print out a big, big poster, and we have it in our weight room. Those are the things when we walk in the door every day, like that's what we are focused on. Those are the things that we want to define who we are. And it's important. Like, I think it's really important to have a vision, have a philosophy, like have a defined purpose of who we are as a group, as a department. Obviously at a higher level, there's a defined purpose from an organizational perspective, like who are we as an organization, and all of what we are as a department needs to fit inside that and have some alignment. But we need to have that definition, because that trickles down. We can't just walk in every day and have our players walk in and just, hey, we're going to throw some stuff up against the wall. That's not the way that we want to operate. We want to have, again, we want to have a system and a direction and a defined purpose behind what we're trying to do.
Right on. Well, I imagine every day is a team building opportunity, right, for your professionals. But do you ever kind of venture off of campus, so to speak, and do any kind of team building events, or do you pair up some professionals that may not have the same perspective, even though they're trying to achieve the same goal, maybe have them work together so that they can see the perspective of each other, and whether they agree to it or not, they can appreciate them more? Like, do you do anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we haven't had the chance really since we've been in Utah to do any offsite work. Um, but when we were in Arizona, we used to do that all the time in the off season. It was such a great location to network and meet with all the, a lot of the spring training baseball teams were right in our backyard. So we would in our off season, we would jump down and try to meet with as many of those teams and staffs as possible. And here we're really fortunate here. So our new owner here in Utah also owns the Utah Jazz. So we are under the same umbrella organization as the Jazz. And so we've been able to collaborate and connect with their staff quite a bit as we were first transitioning up here. So getting to connect with those guys and guys and girls and just, hear their perspective. And obviously, the NBA is similar but different from what we do. And University of Utah is close by, and BYU, and we're actually there's a lot of Olympic sports that are here in Salt Lake City area. So our practice facility is in the what's called the Olympic Oval, where the U.S. speed skating trains. So we literally get to see the U.S. speed skaters train every day, and we see their staff and get to connect with them. So there's a lot of crossover and a lot of touch points with other professionals from other sports. So it's definitely something that we try to take advantage of.
Very cool. I was thinking that, yeah, that's the hub of winter sports and Olympic training. So I could easily see you guys starting to develop a relationship. And speaking of developing, sports science, man. Sports science, I feel like it's in its toddler phase. Maybe not infancy, but toddler. We've been using a whole bunch of tech for a little while now, and we've been looking at nutrition for a little while now. We're starting to explore sleep cycles, and of course, we've got force plates, counter jump movements, all those things. But when it comes to sports science, it seems like that it's almost like a young child that you don't know which direction it's going to toddle in, and you don't know where it's going to take you. You have faith that it's going to grow into something really remarkable if you nurture it and so on. But there's so many elements to it within the framework of your team and your goals of getting to the cup, winning, and so on. What elements of sports science do you feel are are important parts, I guess? What are you looking for? And within the sports scientists themselves that's on your team, what are your goals?
Yeah, I mean, for me, sports science is really just about trying to better understand um, what our athletes are doing, what the response to what they're doing is, and trying to find opportunities for, incremental improvements, whether that be, you kind of talked about it, nutrition, right? Incremental nutritional improvements. Can we, make small improvements in, if we can analyze, the athlete's blood biomarkers and identify, slight um, areas for improvement in, certain, vitamin deficiencies, just as an example. Can we make slight improvements there with individuals? Can we make slight adjustments in rest and recovery? Can we look at our schedule and our travel, and can we find, maybe one or two opportunities to, stay overnight instead of traveling back from, a long road trip? Or is it better to travel back instead of staying overnight? Can we find light opportunities to, um, you know, taper back in a practice at a certain time, or vice versa, slight opportunities to find areas that we can push a little bit harder at a certain practice at a certain time? That's what, to me, that's what sports science and the ability, when we talk about sports science, it's people, the idea is really the ability to measure things. That's what, for the most part, we're really kind of discussing. And there's lots of tools and technology out there. It's really about the ability to measure something within the sport, or within the with the athlete during sport or during training. And the purpose of that, really, for me, again, is trying to find just slight opportunities for improvement. So that's what we're always trying to look at, whether it be, again, you touched on, force plates, or, GPS monitoring, or, nutritional, blood biomarkers I brought up, different things like that, that a lot of people in pro sport are able to do. That's the purpose of it, is that, 1% incremental improvement idea.
Right on. Okay. Within your team, and not to pry too much, but you yourself have come in with such strengths that I imagine you connect rather easily with certain people on your team. And then there are those that you just have to nurture a little bit more. Not that you struggle with them necessarily, but it doesn't flow as smoothly as other members on your team. So, and I don't want to pick anybody apart, but what avenues, what areas, what kind of departments do you think to yourself at night, going, I need to cultivate a little bit more. I know we can get a better working relationship, a better understanding, and just a stronger connection. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I mean, like any team, any family, you're not always gonna see eye to eye with everybody. You're not going to be best friends with everybody. That's the reality of life. But I think what's important, again, this kind of comes back to that idea that we talked about of having a unified vision. Everybody needs to sort of understand what the larger picture is, what the bigger goal is. It needs to agree upon that. And be able to walk in the door every day and understand, hey, what are we all trying to, at the end of the day, what are we all trying to achieve? And how are we trying to get there? And you know, in our role as, support staff, whether that's on the performance department, the medical department, equipment, coaching staff, whoever that might be, ultimately, like, we're here to, we're servant leaders. We're here to serve the athlete. We're here to help the athletes perform at their best. And we all have different avenues for that, right? Every practitioner in the department, in the organization, has a thing that they are good at that ultimately is about helping the athlete in some way. We can all agree upon that, and we all have different niches and different things that we need to focus on. So whether or not we necessarily see eye to eye, or are best friends or not, if we can at least come together and understand, hey, we need to have a mutual respect that we are here for the same common goal, and that we respect that each of us has, a specific task or purpose that has meaning for this organization and for these athletes. Then we can agree that, we don't need to be best friends, but we can work towards the same vision.
Okay, dude. So you have so much coming at you from so many different directions. I could see moments where it becomes overwhelming. At least to me, it would be. Maybe not to you, but in the event, on those rare occasions where you do get so much stimuli being bombarded from all directions, what kind of how do you handle that? How do you try to minimize the feeling of being overwhelmed? Whether it's the beginning of the season when there's so much, when the rookies are showing up or whatever. Like what have you found to be a successful means of 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 just buffering
Um, I try to get outside. try to
that?
I try to get away, go for a walk. It's when we were in Arizona, very fortunate to, beautiful weather all the time. I love to trail run and mountain bike, and I could easily, on a game day, I could leave the practice rink, from, morning skate, and I could buzz up literally 5-10 minutes away and go trail run or mountain bike, go to my house, take a shower, be down at the game rink. That's how I clear my head, is, to exercise, but to a lot of times to get outside and do that. Same thing here. I mean, it's going to be a different environment. Obviously, it's snowing today, which we didn't get too much of in Phoenix. Um, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, I think for me personally, like, I'm a little bit more, of an introvert. Personally, I need to, like, get away and just be quiet and clear my head. That's how I kind of deal with when things get overwhelming and chaotic. Just take a breath and move and be in nature if possible.
Right on. You speak of like no snow in Phoenix and so on in Arizona, and now being in Utah. So this month, November here, as I understand it, this marks your fourth anniversary of being with the team, 3.5 years in Arizona, and then April you moved to Utah. Um, I don't know if many people think about the lack of job security, shall we say. Like it's not very strong in the world of professional sports. All you need is a change of potentially a change of coaching or ownership or something that the next thing you know, hey, I'm done. At least here for this time. Now I've got to start looking elsewhere. In your case, it was more just a change in location. So, like from a personal perspective, you for 3.5 years you were starting to dig roots into your Arizona community, and now almost overnight, not quite, but close to it enough, now you've relocated to Salt Lake City. Give me an idea of if you don't mind, of what that was like when you got word that, okay, hey, we're now I've not only do I have to do my job, but now I've got to figure out where am I going to live and all that. Is that what happened?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, it's certainly professional sports. There isn't a lot of job security. That's what you sign up for. So you know that this was a very unique situation. I mean, we literally found out we really almost found out overnight. There were some rumblings and rumors that there was potential that something might happen, but we kind of woke up one morning. We were literally on the road in in Canada, and woke up to the news that we were being sold. Um, and we had a sort of all hands on deck meeting that morning to find out what little information there was. I mean, honestly, there was very little information that morning. Found out a few weeks later. We, met the new owner. He flew in and came in to meet us in Arizona a couple weeks later. And then, I mean, this was still during last season. And then it was very, a sprint to kind of wrap things up and move things, and there was no playbook to it. So it was very much, it was a lot of chaos and a lot of moving parts for everybody. But the biggest challenge, honestly, is, it's one thing for me, professionally. It's like, okay, once you know that, you're retaining your job and all of that, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to continue to do my job. It's just going to be in a different, facility, more or less. And there's some logistics around that or whatever. But, we all have families. I have two young kids, and now I'm uprooting them. So it's, as much as, I had had a great experience in Phoenix. It was more so the challenge of, uprooting my kids and my wife from what they had, started to build in the Arizona community, and move them. And that's the part that people from the outside looking into pro sports, I think, oftentimes don't see as much when people get moved around. Is It's one thing for, players and staff to, it's the job and that's what you sign up for, but it's, there's a lot of family pieces behind the scenes that are more challenging. And so that was the tougher part of the move. But fortunately, things have gone really well for us, and my family has absolutely loved it here, and it's been a great experience so far.
Oh, that's a great ending to that conversation there. Oh my gosh. Because I was wondering, I knew you had kids and a wife and so on. And yeah, when you have young kids, 3 years could be a decade in their eyes, right? And it's just making all friends and having to go about making new friends can be daunting for some kids. And well, that's really great to hear, Devin. I'm happy with that. But you're right, and a lot of people don't really stop and consider the the means of which people have to just get uprooted from one team and go to another in pursuit of their passion. So aside from the change in location, you mentioned logistics have changed a little bit. Your training facility, was it a kind of a parallel shift? Would you consider it going a little bit more upscale? Like, where are you now compared to where you were this time last year?
Yeah, it's been quite a whirlwind. So essentially what's happened is we are currently in a temporary facility for this season only, and we'll be moving into a brand new facility that's being built that will be our permanent home moving forward. So when I say temporary facility, I mentioned earlier we're practicing in the Olympic Oval, which is where in 2002, where when the Olympics were in Salt Lake City last time, it's where the speed skating took place, and it's where they still the U.S. speed skating still trains. So it's a massive facility. There's a speed skating oval, and inside that are 2 rinks. So you can imagine how big this building is. Within this building, they have built literally a 2-story facility inside the larger building that is our gym, our training room, our locker room, offices, video room, like everything that a team needs. So they built that inside the larger facility, and
Sweet.
that's our temporary, for this season only, home. So I'm sitting in that right now. So that's where we work out of. I would say the fact that they built that in about 4 months, it is quite incredible. It's for what it is, for a temporary facility, and for the time that it took them to put this up. It's fantastic. The facility that we're going to move into, that's being sort of designed and built right now, is going to be absolutely world class. So we are very excited to move into that. It's going to be about well, the gym itself will be about 8,000 square feet, but the entire facility will be about 50,000 square feet. And down the road, it will partner, because again, we are we're partnered, basically, we're with the Utah Jazz. We're same organization. So in a couple of years, they will move into the same facility. So we will, or next to us, essentially, we will have our own spaces, but we will be in the same sort of giant facility, and we'll share one big home. So we're really excited about that. It's going to be like I said, it's going to be world class. The ownership group here, our owner Ryan Smith and the Smith Entertainment Group, has just been second to none. The way that they've operated and treated us, and the money that they've spent to do things just truly the right way, and they're building something just incredible here. So we've been very, very fortunate.
Oh, that's super exciting. So, geographically, where the Delta Center is now, where the Jazz play, is there your new arena is going to be like adjacent to that?
So I should clarify, this is a practice facility. So we play in the Delta Center
Okay,
with the
okay,
Jazz, and we'll stay there. They're renovating that as we speak as well.
beautiful.
This is a separate practice facility. It'll be about 20 minutes south of downtown of the game arena.
And are you helping to kind of design and develop the training facility itself?
Yeah, we've been able to have a pretty strong hand in actually getting to design sort of our space, and they've been very, very open to collaborating, and talking with the architects, and really taking our input into it, which has been
It's
great.
like Christmas comes early for you. I just honestly, in my head, I'm like, really? You're going to just give us the keys to the kingdom here and just figure out what to do? That must be kind of exciting, something different, huh?
Yeah, that part's been fantastic. I've been fortunate to be involved a few times in my career with getting to design and build facilities smaller scale than this, for sure. But this is going to be a whole new level, and the ability to do some of the things that we want to do will be really unique. So we're excited about it.
Right on. Okay, so then your AHL team, Tucson Roadrunners, are they part of this? Are they going to be moving up there? Because I know a lot of the NHL teams these days are trying to get their AHL affiliates either on the same campus or nearby, like San Jose Sharks. We've got the Barracudas that are
Right.
at San Jose State University campus. Like, is that something down the road, or like how far is Tucson? Give me an idea of like is that obviously you'd fly down if you need to, but are you overseeing any of the Roadrunners organization as well?
Yeah, so in my role, I mean, I oversee the performance group down there, and all of their kind of not necessarily on a day-to-day perspective, but oversee their operation. They're still our American League team, as far as it's certainly over my pay grade, but as far as we know, that's going to continue. That they've been with us for a long time, and so as far as I know, that's going to continue. That's been a great host for our minor league team.
Fabulous. All right. So, okay, there's always the cheap question that anybody can throw out, like, what are the top books you're reading? That's a filler in a way, but I am actually really curious as a high performance director in the NHL, the type of books that you're reading, are they kind of just brainless fiction spy adventure books that you can just unplug and just go into a fictional world, or do you pull off your shelves like how to win friends and influence people and Covey sharpening the saw, whatever? What do you like to pull off your shelf when you're reading?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I do tend to try to, have some type of, leadership management, again, back to that question of, how are you trying to kind of upskill yourself in that specific area? So something along those lines. I couldn't tell you what the title of whatever's in my bag at this time. And then I usually have something that's a little bit more, light reading, whether it be, I tend to read, biographies or, things like that, more of nonfiction than fiction, but something, um, something a little bit lighter that's just more entertainment based.
Gotcha. Okay. And then as this, we're kind of, I don't think we're running out of time, but I do appreciate the time you've given me so far. But as this season has gotten underway, we're kind of early on, right? What are the things that are popping up for you, if any, that are the things you really want to start focusing on in regards to the team performance, in regards to the support team of professionals within your cohorts? Like, what are you starting to look at and go, oh, okay, let's fine tune this, or let's broaden this? What are your goals, say, in the next month or two right now, short term?
Yeah, well, one of the big differences, for us here versus, obviously where we came from is environment. Um, Obviously, moving from Phoenix where, it's sunshine probably 300 and, 40 days a year or whatever, um, to Salt Lake City where I mentioned it's snowing today. A lot less sunshine, a lot less, sunlight during the day, which is going to have an impact, both, psychologically and physiologically. So trying to think about how that's going to impact our players and what we can do to, mitigate any, negative impacts of that. And then also elevation. So Salt Lake City is at elevation. And depending, we're sort of in the valley. We're probably at a couple thousand feet, but where a lot of the staff and players live is, even quite a bit higher than that. So elevation has a big, impact. What we have found, just anecdotally, just right off the bat, is um, when you're here for a week or so, you acclimate pretty quickly, and seems to be some benefit. As soon as we go on a road trip, and come back, the first couple of days, guys don't feel so hot. So what can we maybe think about doing? I'm trying to, maybe educate myself a little more. I haven't needed to do that in the past. So trying to figure out, hey, how can we mitigate some of those, potential negative impacts of, or potential positive impacts too, of taking advantage of the altitude that we're sort of training at. So those are some areas that I'm trying to think about and try to be ahead of the curve.
Wow, that was not what I was expecting, but fantastic answer. Yeah, it's I I can only imagine. Yeah, because you're changing elevation left and right with your road games. You could be down in Florida, but you could be in Denver, or wherever. I mean, just higher elevations is the point. Uh, wow. Okay. And then within your team, are there gaps of a department, shall we say? Like, you've got your sports science, sports psychology, or mental skills. You've got, of course, your strength and conditioning. You've got your dietitian slash nutritionist. Are, like, in the perfect world, Devin, and you've got all the resources to choose from, is there a place would it be an elevation specialist, a traveling specialist, seasonal affective disorder specialist? Like, what is there something that you're like, oh, if we put this in place, it will complete the mandala, so to speak?
I don't know if you're ever complete. I think things are always changing, and part of that is, even within a staff, like as staffs grow and develop, and there's turnover and change, you bring new people in or people leave, the dynamics change. But I think one area where I think the game is constantly evolving and changing, and I see an area for potential growth is like, um, I guess I would call it cognitive development, cognitive coaching. It's that idea of like, um, some players, some players just see the game so much faster than other players, and that's what allows them to be really, really productive or really successful. Like it's that Wayne Gretzky idea of being two or three, plays ahead of the game, seeing where the puck is going to go. They can process the game faster, and I think you're starting to see people pop up that have skill sets and being able to coach that and train those areas. And I think that would be a potential area that I would be interested in learning more about, finding practitioners that have that skill set. Maybe that's an area in the future that becomes a role, another sort of specialized role within a department that could be beneficial, because I think that that's an area um, that is underutilized from a coaching perspective. We certainly can physically train athletes, but do we mentally train athletes to the best of our ability? You get to this level and everybody's, pretty much everybody's strong and fit and fast. Um, so much of the game happens between the ears. Like, how much are we focusing on that, and how much are we devoting to that? There's probably some room for growth in that area.
Yeah, and championships are measured in 1%, like you were
Exactly.
saying earlier, right? So you're looking for that 1%. I hope you find it, man. It's an exciting time for you, and glad the move was a positive aspect of your life. And this has been a great conversation. Again, thank you for your time and putting some time aside, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great to catch up and great to talk, and thank you for having me on.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Zealous Podcast. Devan, thank you so much for coming on once again, touching base with what you've been doing in Utah. And for those of you not sure the track that you want to follow, maybe you want to get a degree, remember Setanta College is the place to go, setantacollege.com for online learning, Masters of Science in 4 different tracks. And check out my website, rockysnyder.com, whether it's to get the book Return to Center or the continuing education platforms that we have. You're sure to get something that would probably interest you. Until next week, go make it a good one.